Hey everybody, I'm Dr. Seth, psychologist. Today in this video, I want to talk about a relationship issue, specifically a dating issue that I think is one of the biggest problems in the dating world today, and actually a real obstacle to people actually having successful dating experiences. So, if you're dating, if you're out there in the dating pool looking for someone, trying to find a partner, hopefully you can take this advice, think about it, and maybe implement it so that your dates are actually successful, so that you send really good messages to the people that you're out on dates with. And hopefully, when you find someone you really connect with, they like you too. They actually want to go out of their way and make an effort to continue seeing you too. Okay, so here is the issue: not asking the other person questions about themselves on a date. I can't tell you the number of clients that I have worked with over the years that have shared this feedback, that they went out on a date with somebody, but one of the most frustrating things about the date was the fact that, well, they just really didn't ask them any questions about them. Okay. So you have probably been on a date yourself, and there you are. Let's say you're sitting at dinner and you're asking the other person questions, maybe about where they grew up or what they do for a living. You're trying to get to know them. You're interested. You show a personality trait that I think people find incredibly attractive, which is curiosity. You show curiosity about the other person. You also show the capacity for actual emotional intimacy, which is being honest about who you are, wanting the other person to be honest about who they are, wanting to share with each other parts of yourselves emotionally, right? Okay. A lot of times this doesn't happen on dates. Only imagine if you went on dates and at the end of a date, each person gave the other a kind of report card, maybe filled out a little checklist. These are three things you could do better on your next date. These are three strengths, that you showed on this date. Just imagine what that would be like. What would people say, right? We can take a moment and think about maybe why that person on that date doesn't ask you, for example, questions about yourself. So there you are asking them questions. Well, why don't they ask you questions in return? You might be thinking to yourself, do they even notice? Do they notice? You might be thinking that I am asking questions. For example, let's just say I asked a question about their family upbringing. They don't ask a question in return about my family upbringing. Let's imagine you asked a question about their career and how they decided to get into their career. Maybe if they really like their career, if they could maybe see themselves in that career for the rest of their working life. Well, they don't ask you any questions back about your own work. What does this mean? Does it mean that that individual is really self centered, really self interested, really self focused? Does it mean that this person doesn't have empathy, doesn't care at all about who you are as a person? No, that's premature to determine that. There could be a couple of other reasons why somebody doesn't ask you questions back. One is just pure nervousness, pure anxiety. Sometimes if a person is really anxious and nervous, they are so stuck in their own head that they actually don't feel relaxed enough to be able to give themselves permission to even think naturally, organically, fluidly, and they don't feel at ease enough to actually just have a thought, pose internally a question they're wondering about you, and actually then ask you. They might have a thought for a second, but something might get in the way where they think, well, maybe I shouldn't ask them that, or that's a stupid question, or maybe that would seem weird if I just ask the same exact kind of question back. So a lot of times, overthinking can be a reason why one person might not ask you questions about your personal life on a date. Another reason why somebody might not ask you questions on a date, even though we would hope that they could, One reason why they might not do it is because maybe they grew up in a way, or maybe they learned from somebody that, asking certain questions, is too personal. Maybe they're afraid of kind of coming across rude or nosy or pushy. It does take a little bit of time to get to know a person. So here is the point. What do you do with this information? I believe everybody on a first date, on a second date, should be asking the other person questions, should show curiosity and interest. If you are on a date with somebody and you find they're just not asking you questions about yourself, after the date, think about it. Check in with yourself and ask yourself, was that really kind of a pattern? Yeah, come to think about it, I did really ask them questions about themselves, and they really didn't seem to ask me questions about myself. Okay, now you have some information. What you can do is give yourself permission to bring that issue up with the other person. If the other person, for example, suggests a second date or another date, you can say to them, hey, can we just say hi on the phone for a few minutes and just check in before that next date? And you can actually say to them on the phone, hey, I just wanted to mention something to you. I noticed on that last date, I hope it was okay. I think I asked you a bunch of questions about yourself personally. And I think I noticed that you didn't really ask me a lot of questions about myself. And I just wanted to let you know that it is okay. And actually, I'm really happy to share with you about who I am so that you can get to know me better. That's okay. It's okay to ask me questions. Now, you might think, whoa, that seems so assertive. Notice, though, the way that I role played bringing that issue up. It was friendly. I was partly smiling while I did it. So you're not doing it aggressively. You're not sounding angry, but you are communicating a message that you do want the two of you, if you're going to continue to spend time together, to get to know each other. And to get to know each other, that person is going to need to ask you some questions. Now, you can do it on the phone, like I suggested, or you could even wait to do it until the next date. But the most important point about what I'm suggesting is that you do address it in this way. By addressing it, you can assert gently your own needs. You can also communicate then what you're really looking for, which is actual emotional intimacy, somebody getting to know you. Okay. So I hope a couple of these points have been helpful. I do think that it's an important part of dating to make sure that you feel that the other person is sufficiently trying to get to know you, sufficiently showing curiosity and real deep interest in coming to understand and know who you are. And sometimes, in order to make that happen, yes, it is okay to assert yourself and bring up the issue with that person. All right. I'm Dr. Seth, psychologist.